Yes, I got it. Brilliant.
Great, Sarah. Wow. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, we're a little bit after the event. I said we'd go live at past, but yeah, totally forgot to give us some time to speak with each other. Sarah and I know each other. We've worked together. It has been a while, and I've been so excited to connect with you, Sarah. I mean, it was brilliant working together anyway. Such a great fit. You were so supportive of me and the work I was trying to do with your son. And yeah, all the way trust and faith, which really helps every element of the process. And of course, that's kind of what we were doing on the parenting side. And then I was working with Lenny as a tutor and a coach as well. So I'm awesome. We've had like a lightning catch up, but I kind of wanted to save a lot of it for the live. So I'm delighted we haven't had that long as well. But yeah, you're a mother of three, single mother of three.
Three, single mom. Yeah, I got Lenny, my youngest. He's 17. I got
business owner. Yeah, go on. You introduce yourself. Yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Lenny's 17 now. He's 17 a few weeks ago. And I've got Mimi, who's 19 at uni in London, and Betsy, who's 24, who's out in the world working now and doing really well. So it's been quite a journey bringing them up pretty much on my own. Had a brief period of 2 years with my ex-husband, but you know, the fathers of the children haven't really been around that much. So it's been, yeah, I've pretty much done it single-handedly. I know a lot of mums do that even if they're in a relationship. You know, sometimes it feel that way. But, you know, I don't think being a single mum literally on your own is necessarily all that different sometimes from being in a partnership, because sometimes, you know, for mums or dads, it can feel like you're kind of holding the load, holding the sort of the responsibility very much for them and their education and their well-being. And but yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say what I see of you is that you have a strong community around you. That's what I sense, is that you have a lot of other maybe mums, women friends. Maybe it's your business because you're also a yoga teacher, successful business owner, and you know, you know, you seem to have a strong community around you in that.
Amazing parents, you know, the children's grandparents have been there right from, you know, day one when I was on my own at the beginning. Kind of like coming in and being very supportive, and you know, gosh, you know, without them a lot of things wouldn't have been possible. And right up until recent events with Lenny, their input was really really important.
Yeah,
really that practical sense of you know, being there to help. You know, we don't live nearby, so I couldn't rely on them all that much, but definitely it's been helpful. Just, I think, you know, I don't feel like I've been alone. You know, I haven't felt isolated. I've got my community. You know, I've built up a lot of friends through work, and yoga tends to attract very lovely people. So, you know, I've met a lot of people through doing my own practice in yoga and meeting people locally. And I live in Dorset, in a lovely area where everyone's just really nice. You know, it's a really lovely rural community. And we've recently moved, so I'm sort of building up again in that sort of community. But, you know, my friends, we've only moved sort of 40 minutes away from where we were for 12 years. But it does feel we are a little bit uprooted at the moment. But fortunately, that all came after the GCSE. We didn't have to go through the physical moving whilst all that was going on. I made sure that we postponed it as long as we could, so Lenny could get that. And I really sort of hung in there before actually moving. Yeah,
I mean, let's just like, I don't even really want to use the word honor, because but that period for anyone with a child who is 14, 15, 16, going into GCSEs and getting out the other end, that's my big excitement in a way, bringing you into the group now. And I've seen lots of people in the group going, wow, great. You know, they can see the headlines, weed smoking, you know, nothing unusual in many, but weed smoking, then expulsion from school, which was totally unexpected in the middle of year 11, having to then home educate. You know, the whole reason you and I met was because you know, more motivation and kind of self-directed learning was needed, plus some coaching, but just more enthusiasm for maths and English and anything. So, you know, that, like, wow, I was just hearing that news from you, seeing it on Facebook and just thinking, wow, because that was after we were working together. So we actually, we first met in deepest, darkest lockdown. We met in, I remember it so well. The timing was pretty bleak time in the world.
It was,
December 2020.
Yeah. When we were back in to that again, weren't we? And it was starting to feel quite sort of, we were all getting a bit despondent, weren't we? And our children, you know, winter, lockdown. And I mean, for Lenny, lockdown was a disaster for his education. I'm sure a lot of parents will agree. My middle daughter, not so much, because she was quite motivated. And that's her sort of coping mechanism, I think, is to be quite high achieving and successful. Whereas with Lenny, you know, I mean, the school were good at saying, look, you know, don't stress. You know, he'd just gone into year 9 at an upper school, because we're in the 3-tier system here. So yeah, it was like he'd only been at school 6 months or so, wasn't it? March 2020. And it was obvious. Lenny struggled at school anyway. So then being left to just me, he was just like, you know, wow, what are we going to do? And we did what we could, but it was, and the school just said, you know, don't battle, you know, and it's, I've always felt that their mental and emotional well-being is more important than any kind of results they get at school. And it was obvious that we had a bit of a choice there, and that I had to let go and stop pushing. And, you know, because it was year 9 at that point, the school were like, look, you know, he will catch up. Year 10, he should catch up. But then there was just more and more lockdown, wasn't there? So by the time he came to you, it just felt like any chance of motivation and inspiration for him was sort of completely waning. We were really missing that opportunity. And the weed smoking had really taken hold.
Yeah,
that sort of in between lockdown summer, when they were starting to have a bit of freedom again, summer 2020, was when I really noticed that it was like, oh, okay, they didn't have anything else to do, you know. It was like suddenly, you know, Lenny went from, you know, boxing, swimming, parkour, gym, just he was out most nights, you know, doing something, skating. And, you know, it just all disappeared. And I saw him shrink from this quite beefy, muscly boy. He sort of shrank, like, you know, just in size, just from being so stuck at home. And and it's like when they could go back to being out again, all those clubs and sports, you know, it was all gone. So, and I think even the skate park was closed for quite a long time, so they didn't even have that. So it felt like suddenly they were sort of, you know, hiding in the woods, smoking weed, and that became their pastime.
Yeah, and there were crazy sleeping hours. I remember he was kind of struggling, you know, there was like up till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then online schooling was a write-off. And I mean, I'm sure every parent listening to this, there's a few parents. It's great to see your comments, by the way. I can see some of the comments. I hope the sound is okay. We're just going to presume it is. Let us know if it's not. But yeah, I can see it is. It's great. So yeah, tough time for the world. Wow. And anyone tuning in who's also got a child of any age, really above, well, any age, but above 10, going through the pandemic, having that really just a great challenge. So yeah, sleeping patterns out all over the place, all those good lifestyle things gone out the window and replaced with weed smoking, you know, which is, and at that age, 14, 15, that is, I think, when you can also lose like the commitment to boxing, the commitment to skating, that sometimes it can come a bit, you know, a lot's changing for you. So you can end up not really carrying on with the same things you did all your life until then. It's an interesting age. There's a lot of change. And if you go that way of, you know, I'm not going to be active, I'm going to be inactive, then it can really spiral, and especially in a pandemic. Wow.
Absolutely, because you know, there was just that complete sort of shutdown of it, wasn't it? It wasn't a choice. They were forced into that. And yeah, so it was so devastating to see him. But you know, again, I just felt as a family, I had all 3 were at home. My daughter came back to finish her degree, she was doing her last year of uni, and I just felt like, right, okay, mental emotional health here is priority, and let's just keep ourselves sane.
Yeah.
We were really lucky because we lived at the time, we lived in the middle of nowhere. We didn't, you know, we had fields, we had, you know, we had open space. So we were really lucky to not be sort of hemmed in or anything, which I think must have been awful for people. So yeah, we just did what we could, and I tried to keep the children as active as possible and sort of maintain a bit of a routine as much as possible. But with Lenny, I think, you know, it was during lockdown that I said to his English literature teacher, I think we might as well give up on this, you know, Jekyll and Hyde is not going to get read, you know, and I don't know, by the time they went back to school in March 21, that was when things sort of properly opened back up for school, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was clear that, you know, he was that was I think we gave up English lit during the lockdown, and just I sort of put my foot down about it really, and just felt like, okay, he needs maths, he needs English language, but we can give up on that. And then we sort of made a decision amongst ourselves to slow down on science. It was like, I didn't think that school would ever give us permission to stop because they were a science college. And they felt, but I felt like, okay, this is just too much, you know, he's really struggling. He has a processing disorder as well that we found out about at the beginning of year 9. He saw a pediatrician because I was worried something was going on, you know, real lack of organization, timekeeping, constantly sort of breaking things, losing things. And yeah, so that got diagnosed. And so I just felt like, okay, let's just give him a bit of a break, because he's not going to get any extra support with a processing disorder. There's not going to be anything special for him to help. But there was, you know, there was so much that we had to do at home to help him with that. And and so we didn't give up the sciences, but during the lockdown we certainly didn't bother too much with it.
Well, I mean, just to quickly jump in, that was a great move, I think, for many parents. Unfortunately, for a lot of parents, they really felt like they had to keep plowing on in the same way that schools do or did, and you know, at the cost of their relationship, you know, well-being at some point. That was one thing, Sarah, you always had, and it was such a delight to work with. You always had that sense of like, I know what my priorities are, like you've just been saying now, mental health, but also just the health of your relationships. You know, you weren't prepared to be at war with them. You knew you had to kind of let Lenny, and I'm sure your other two in other ways during that period and before, just let them do their thing, let them figure it out, that he was always kind of safe in your house doing that, even though sleep patterns all over the place, not showing up much at school, for the online schooling, weed smoking, you knew that your top priority was to just kind of roll with it, see how you could support him. And we went through that period together a bit, you know, just reassurance of like, okay, am I being totally irresponsible? That can come up, of course.
I know.
And judgment, you had some judgment from other parents around that time. Like,
insurance was so helpful to have that time that we had, you know, that sort of like, I think we would catch up every few weeks or so, wouldn't we? That time to sort of catch up and to say, gosh, you know, I'm feeling quite pressured here, that, you know, I'm kind of making the wrong decision to be more laid back with him, and that perhaps I should be coming down harder. But also, of course, because when you've got children coming to your house, by this time we're getting into like 15 sort of age range, you know, obviously there is a responsibility for the other children that are coming to your home. And if parents aren't happy with the way you're being, about whether you're being laid back or very strict and what you're not allowing, I was never going, yay, go for it. I was just kind of being a bit more like, well, okay, that if you're all going out there into the woods, I'm not going to come chasing after you, kind of thing, you know. But yeah, your reassurance around that, and to just really trust my instincts on it. And also because of what I'd been through with Betsy, my first, where I'd come down really hard out of sort of fear of what she was getting up to, and that sort of terror that I think you have with your first child when they're pushing the boundaries and you just start freaking out like, oh my God, what's going on? And it's such a shock when that happens, I think, with your first. And I was determined, because Betsy really taught me a lot, because my sort of like coming down hard and being quite strict was actually really detrimental to her mental health. It was a combination of things, but I feel that, you know, it was definitely, I feel, you know, I want to take responsibility for that. And so it was like, you know, a lesson learned, it doesn't work. And also because by then, because I had a 7-year age gap, I could see by the time I get to Lenny, Betsy's fine. She's totally okay. You know, she hit a real rock bottom. It was awful. And we had to take her out of school. Different situation, but we did have to take her out. And you know, so she's sort of getting to like 21, 22, coming to the end of her degree, going out to work. She then gave up drinking. She's been sober 2 years. She's well, and it's okay. I had the experience of the advantage of time, because when you've only got a couple of years before the first ones push those boundaries, you haven't had quite time to realize actually they get through it. The majority of them do, and if we just back off and leave them alone a little bit to figure it out, but that's incredibly scary.
No, I've got to comment on that, because in a way, that's what I want everyone listening to also kind of take the reassurance from. I mean, from me in the group, I hope they take that all the time. But from you, it's never better than from an actual mum who's been through it, or a parent who's been through it. And yeah, you know, my wish with my work, or my wish for all parents with teens, is that we do minimize the conflict, because it's just not worth it. Like, they do come out the other side without going into being irresponsible, and we each have our own line and judgment on that and have to use our own discernment. But a lot of it, they just, you know, if we can keep together, stay together, keep the love alive, keep communicating with each other, essential if you want to keep them safe, by the way. Wow, of course we want them talking with us rather than not talking with us about everything. But wow, you've now done that 3 times over, Sarah, so you've got that wisdom to share.
Great. My middle one didn't ever hit anything like that. Maybe she still will, you know, she's 19 and we've sort of escaped it with her, so I had a bit of a breather with Mimi. But, with Betsy, you know, what happened with her when things really hit rock bottom with her is I swooped in, similar way to with Lenny when he got expelled, sort of swooped in with her and just did everything I could to help her out. Unfortunately with Betsy, it kind of reached a point where it was really seriously, you know, she was in quite a bad way with her mental health before, you know, I sort of did that. Okay, we need a complete change of plan here, and went into sort of like therapy, getting her counselling, took her out of school on the advice of the therapist, lots of massage, lovely sort of work like that, and just really calming everything down and just coming back to a much more gentle, trying to create a more gentle household. And I think, you know, Lenny was also, because of his processing disorder, and he's quite sensitive to noise and he can't bear shouting. He struggled at school with anything like that. He disassociates a bit when that kind of thing happens. And so again, it was like, he was a teacher as well of like how important it was for our household to try and be as calm as possible. And that brought us back to that lockdown idea of, you know, not pushing, not screaming and shouting, because it didn't work. I mean, all children are different. Some seem to cope with that better, but mine really don't.
Yeah, I mean, some will let you know more immediately, but I think just in general, as parents, I would say there's not many blanket rules we can find, but one blanket rule would be that your home needs as much as possible to be a place of safety and love and inclusion and belonging, acceptance, you know, so it does, calmness, that those go a long way with any child under the sun, I would say. So and you knew that.
I felt that. And you know, and they really, you know, when you sort of like, you're like, okay, I'm going to start putting down some, the children still laugh. They're like, Mum, did you ever have any rules? I did have rules, but I didn't ever get into punishing. I couldn't do that, like go to your room. I couldn't do that grounding. I think I tried with Betsy, but it didn't really work. And you know, I just felt that all that sort of like that escalation of kind of drama in a family is so detrimental to everyone. And you know, when I did the opposite, and with Betsy, when I really sort of shifted things, you know, she slowly found her way through it. And and is a great example of, you know, what can happen. And at the time when Betsy was going through her worst time, when she was about 15 or 16, I did start to write some blogs and had lots of parents getting in touch saying, gosh, you know, this is exactly what's happening to my daughter, my son, you know, their mental health sinking, they're anxious, can't get them to school, all of that sort of thing. And my advice was, you know, just hang in there, just, you know, take the pressure off, you know, don't push it. They can always catch up, you know. There's such a rush, isn't there, in education, to get them to this finish line and get them there as fast and as, you know, successfully as you can. But actually,
no, go on, sorry, I'm too excited to speak. I can't stop myself jumping in. Finish your sentence.
No, it's just, it doesn't always work. It really doesn't. And you know, and it comes at a cost. It really does. And I think, you know, I think that a lot of the time as parents, we're going against our instincts. We know deep down that this is not that important. And, you know, I mean, I'm, you know, I was in school in the 80s, you know, I don't remember anyone giving me a pressuring me, or, you know, I went to the local comprehensive and it was all so laid back, and, you know, it was pre all of this kind of stress. And we made our own way, and we all did okay. But nowadays, you know, right from day one, the pressure to get them to that latest goal that they have to achieve, I really do think that most of us realize that is not helping, and but yet we get sucked into it, and then you feel like you're kind of in this funnel of having to achieve and having to, you know, you don't want to be the parent that's kind of, well, the black sheep, as I think I said before, you know, that you don't want to be that black sheep that decides to go the other way. And you know, and so yeah, it's been a real opportunity to learn an awful lot.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, the thing I was really excited to say was also just to remember that time in the early pandemic when there was so much like media coverage or just lip service given to like weeks missed in school or whatever. I mean, like literally you would think that if a child missed 1 week in school, and okay, yeah, I just can't get into it, anywhere in the globe, at any age, 1 week or even a few months of school, it's nothing. It just doesn't mean anything. It's circumstance. I could be shot to pieces probably for that statement with certain people in certain places, but generally speaking, wow, what do we think is going on when we actually look at what's going on in schools? A lot of the time, it's not the thing that we hope it is going to be. It's like it can be a very unsafe environment, nothing much being done. People manage to self-study, you know, 3 times or 4 times quicker with the hours they spend than they do in a school environment, because there's so much control, so much policing, so much that. So, you know, that I don't want to paint too bleak a picture, but that idea that we kind of fall behind, really, sometimes if someone's ill for a couple of years, the learning they get from that process, or trauma, something horrible happens and they're out of school, and they grow from that experience, you know, in ways that you cannot do in a classroom, that aren't equivalent to a classroom. They're just, you can't stop learning, basically. You can't stop a child from learning. So there was that crazy idea that really ran through the pandemic of like, wow, a few weeks or a few days here and there of school and you're behind or you're deficient or something. It was insane. And the pressure parents felt because of that. And, you know, schools still dish this out. You know, what I want for this community is to have a group where we can all go, okay, what's real here? What's really going to support us? What do we actually need to give our hearts and minds to? And that is love and trust and respect and close relationships, and the things that have they're never ever going to go away, and they've always been the case. And you know, for some of us, we feel like we've got to parent in that policing way because we were parented like that as well. I'm not, you know, everyone different, but our parents generally did parent like that. The way we were schooled generally was like that. So we think it's natural. and we think it's also right, and we think we actually have to do it. We've got a responsibility to do it, but it goes against all of our instincts, as you've already said. And so for anyone listening to this, I would really let's meditate on that, like what we really feel our children need.
I
And
think
what's just a whole load of fuss and weird stuff over the top of that.
You know, when it comes to your children, listen to your heart. I really think get over the minds and that conditioning, because it is conditioning, isn't it? And yeah, I think the way I was brought up was sort of like, okay, I don't want to do it that way. You know, that was the way everyone did it in the 70s and 80s. That was the normal. And you know, and it was like, okay, I want to try something else. And I was lucky enough to have, you know, friends around and a community around who were, you know, there was a lot of judgment of the way I was doing things, but I also had a lot of other parents validating that and encouraging me. And I think that's something we need to do for each other as well, you know, for women, mothers, all parents and families, you know, to really encourage each other, whatever decisions we're making, because there can be so much sort of like looking down on how someone does it and someone else. But you know, it's like, I think it's really important to back people up, particularly when they are maybe trying something different, if they're having some challenges. And you know, there's nothing harder. My heart goes out to any parent who's going through any challenge with their child, because you know, it's all consuming. You know, you just and you know, I've had so many sleepless nights, so many tears, you know, of course it's you know, with particularly recently with Lenny, and yeah, and just that sometimes a feeling of helplessness, like what on earth are we going to do, and other times a feeling of sort of lioness warrior, right? I'm going to like protect my child and make sure he's okay. And but then at the end of the day, also for him, somewhere along the line, he got inspired, you know, and that time with you was really powerful. And then, you know, he did get some help at school, from the school he was at. He did get, they did take him sort of under the wing a little bit and took him aside, and he was getting a few extra lessons and things like that. And then, you know, it's those people that come in along the way that can really help to motivate and inspire your children, as well as what happens in the family. It's those teachers and you know, people they meet that are, you know, just such a blessing. And we had when he was starting to look at open days last year for the 2 music courses that he wanted to do, both course leaders locally, both of them were just great, because they were really cool guys. They really sort of took their time with Lenny, showed us around, really talked to him, and could see that he was obviously really passionate about his music, and really did say to him, Lenny, you've got to get 5 GCSEs, you know, there's no mucking about here. And if you don't get your English and maths, you've got to go on the other course, which means it takes a year extra. And you're going to be doing things on that level where you're already doing, because he was already quite advanced in what he was doing with his music. So yeah, I mean, that's all a blessing, the way that we had all of that, which helped when the crunch came. And
so I wanted to kind of, like, in a way, just remind everyone this is a success story. Like, you're in a way, you're on, even though of course we talked about it, like life goes on, you know, he's 17, it's not like wow, he's now kind of, it's still ups and downs, parenting challenges never ending, but basically this is a great success story. So I want to make sure we have time to get into that part of it. But yeah, mentorship, like you say, these people along the way, you know, this is what I offer. Obviously the wish is to do that, exactly that thing, but some people you just get for free. Some people just are teachers who are also mentors. They can't help themselves. They know, they see someone that they know they can extract that goodness out of, give that empowerment to, and you actually cannot do it on your own. And I don't care how many people you're married to or living, you know, as a nuclear family of any kind, or as a family of any, it's not enough. You know, you need people from outside. Teenagers need people from outside explicitly. Yeah, they need strangers to come in. I'd never usually use that word, but in this case it's appropriate because, you know, they're people they don't know. They're not from their family background. They're just people who come in and go, wow, your music, and yes, your 5 GCSEs, what's going on? That's so bad. You can't do that, I don't think, as a parent in
And
some.
that's why his time with you was so important, because I remember feeling at the time how much, you know, he was in need of having a man in
Yeah.
his life in some way who can show him, you know, that it's so, you know, the sort of wholesomeness of working, and, you know, having someone around, you know, who can sort of encourage him with his education, who's also a man, was powerful. And then when we met these two course leaders, and what they said to Lenny at that time, I mean, I literally saw the light going on when we spent that hour with the guy at Bournemouth, you know, and then again in Weymouth, I just saw that light going on for him, just going, oh wow, okay. And he kind of came out, and it was like there was sort of almost an immediate change. But then unfortunately 2 months later, that
Yes.
change was really for him in a sort of very permanent way. But again, what a blessing, because, you know,
So when was that? Year 11? What month?
January.
January year 11, your son's expelled from school. I mean, I just got to say for everyone, what a lovely boy, young man your son is. Just totally lovely.
Yeah.
But so there you go. Yeah, expelled. What then? What happened then?
The shock, the big, I take myself back to that, you know, day. Sometimes it was just unbelievable. And yeah, you know, we talked, it was weeds, it's often weed. So yeah, he got caught, a big silly mistake, had it in school, got caught out, and that was it. Zero tolerance, absolutely no going back from that. I was in complete shock, you know, and I just remember going up to the school, and I was kind of I was angry. I was quite, you know, like, what are you doing? And I couldn't believe it. And then, you know, it's sort of driving away from the school, that, and also seeing Lenny, you know, sat there white as a sheet, because they had involved the police, and he was, yeah, he was expecting, they didn't turn up or anything, but we did have to deal with them quite a lot later. But yeah, it was a huge shock. Nothing like that had ever come at me before. And yes, and yeah, for him just to see this, yeah, I felt sorry for him. I wasn't so angry at him. I was angry with the system. I was angry with the way it could just be gone like that in an instant, no conversation, nothing, and no second chances, no kind of like way back. But I also just felt like, right, you know, we've done this with Betsy, you know, we got Betsy through her GCSEs. I had a lot of help with that. We had a learning centre support her as well as homeschooling. So I was like, okay, we're just going to have to pull out all those stops again. And my mind just went into overdrive trying to work out what we were going to do. But, you know, unbelievable, really. He'd had his mocks in December and they were not good, really not good. He'd managed to pull up from year 10 mocks, he'd got a 1 in English language. And they'd then given him some one-to-one private tuition in the school. They called in a tutor to come in and help, and he got it up to a 5 in December. Wow. So I was like, oh, you know, he's doing so well, you know, he's really working hard. He's seeing, and with the help of a one-to-one tutor, look at that, that's incredible. You know, it was the classroom, the stress, the noise, the other kid, you know, kind of he was finding that so hard. So I just thought, right, we can't let him down. You know, he's desperate to go to Bournemouth College. You know, he's got to get these exams. I just felt this kind of like, that's more important than anything right now. It's more important than going into punishing or blaming, or I didn't really fight the school, because I just felt like, well, I think it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. We did go to a governor's meeting eventually, but I did that more out of wanting Lenny to have the full experience of what was happening, and wanting him to have that opportunity to go and speak to them, and, you know, so but yeah, we just went into list making, phone calls, you know, just everything we could, trying to work it out. The school, all they could offer us was a special school in Sherborne, where none of the subjects synced that Lenny was doing apart from English and maths. So he would have got 2 GCSEs, and that was all they could offer. No other school wanted him because it was so close to exams. Every other school in the area just said, no, we can't deal with him at this stage. It's just too much to sink him in. And it wouldn't, they were saying it wouldn't be fair on their other pupils because he'd take up too much time. Yeah, so we basically, we used a combination of Fairgoes in Fareham. Do you know of them?
No.
So Fairgoes is a home ed centre. It's run in a community centre in Titchfield near Fareham. And it was one of those just coincidences where one of my yoga ladies, Saira, who might be in this group actually, she was taking her son there once a week. He was a bit younger than Lenny, and she'd happened to mention it. She was home educating him, but she felt it was good for him to spend a day in a centre, you know, meeting other children and things and getting that tuition. And she'd mentioned it to me ages before. So I just quickly messaged her, where is it? Is that, you know, contacted them, and they were amazing. The head there was fantastic. She really sort of took me on. That felt a lot of pity, I think, for my state. And you know, she managed to arrange a sort of bit of a timetable. So he went in 1 day a week. He only did English and maths. Then we did a few online lessons, and then I had your guy Anthony with maths in Bristol, and then I poached the tuition, the English language tuition that he'd had at his school. I poached her. I got in touch. Would you mind? Because I knew that she was independent. The school had taken, she wasn't a teacher, she was an independent tutor. And yeah, she very kindly, she was shocked at what had happened and felt awful because she's like, oh, Lenny's doing so well. So she came to the house, and you know, the combination of a little bit of group, a bit of online, and some one-to-one, and also Mimi, my middle daughter, she's really high achieving. She got into Oxford. She didn't go, she went to do fashion, but she was getting 9s and everything, A-star stars. So she did history with him and theology with him. So that saved those subjects. So we cut it right down to 6. And we had a music tutor, and I sort of did the PE because of my, you know, the yoga and the therapies I do. I've got my anatomy and physiology, so I kind of helped him through that side of things.
So what were the 6? Maths, English?
Maths and English language, history, theology, PE and music.
Yeah, great.
So we managed that really well. And yeah, he had an online music teacher, and the school, most of the practical side of things he'd already done, but they did let him go back to do his music practical. And then the other problem was at that stage was exams. You know, there was nowhere for him to actually sit the exams because we'd missed the homeschool cutoff that had been in November. So eventually, it was just, you know, it's so stressful trying to get the county to get him somewhere to do his exams. So eventually he went to Shaftesbury School to do those, and they took him in. The head there was lovely, and he had a couple of weeks to settle. He went in a few days just to settle and get used to the environment, and then actually sat the exams up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just you know, he just kind of, he made a decision that he wanted to do it, and all I did was set it up for him. I kind of, you know, I kind of gave him this opportunity and said, look, there you go, and now it's up to you. I can't do this for you. But he basically did do his GCSEs in like 3 months, you know, because prior to that he hadn't really learned a lot, and he was coming down from like his music lesson, his one-to-one with Deborah, kind of, I was saying, and I thought, well, didn't you learn that at school? No, I don't remember learning that at school. You know, and his history, Mimi was just like, wow, mum, he's amazing. He's really good. He's, you know, she was testing him. They were doing exam papers. She's like, he's great. And he's remembering everything, all these things that at school he hadn't managed to do at all. He'd really not managed to retain information. I think the stress of the school environment meant that he was really struggling to retain, memorize, be organized. Suddenly he had all these folders in his bedroom and alphabetical, you know, everything was really well laid out. It was like he just turned into this dream child.
Yeah, I was going to say that is so many mums' dreams. Sometimes I have to listen to them and go, yeah, maybe don't like buy him the folders until he actually wants to use folders. But yeah,
anything like that ever. We had strewn bits of paper all over the floor, piles like that. I was just like, oh God, in lockdown, just like, I have no idea where to start in here. But suddenly everything was organized, and there were highlighter pens, and then there were revision cards, and yeah, it was incredible. And yeah, so he made it. He got the 5. He didn't quite get the music, sadly, but that is a really hard GCSE, you know.
Yeah.
Really, really tough. But you know, it didn't affect going on, because that was the sort of theory side, you know, because music is really a language. It's a difficult one. But yeah, he did it, and that was an amazing. So in August he went to Life Beat at Embercombe.
Yeah, so I wanted to, so he because I really want to hear about this. This is the last thing. In some ways, we've got 9 minutes. We won't go over half past. We'll keep to time. We could talk. I would love to talk for 2 hours or something, but just for everyone listening as well, so we know we will finish at half past. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been just brilliant to hear from you. But yeah, so he got his 5 GCSEs. I don't want to gloss over that either, because that is a huge achievement for him and for you.
Yeah.
And with whatever kicked in that process of him going, right, there's no other way of any student doing this. I mean, you can, if you're naturally, you can drift along or whatever, but it's meaningless, it's pointless. Even if you get GCSEs like that, it really isn't fueling your life purpose for the future. So this switch in Lenny to actually take it on for himself, study it for himself, that is worth the world, because they're probably the worst things he'll apply himself to in his life, because it's not what he wants to do, right, in a way. So he's just got to get through that. Now he's, you know, now where is he? He's at Bournemouth College.
He's at Bournemouth, yeah. He's doing a music performance course. So he was going to do music tech.
Yeah.
He decided kind of quite last minute, actually, and maybe also after the Life Beat experience, because that was quite a creative week, lots of music. He decided, and he's just got more and more into his guitar, his drums. He did his grade 6, his piano and singing as well. He's been writing songs, and so we went to the enrollment day back in September, and he talked to the tutors and said, "What do you think?" And he said, "No, I'm going to do performance. I'm going to go for it." And he's absolutely loving it. He's just loving it. Yeah. It's just, he's so happy to be there.
That, I think, was what you kind of, how you portrayed him when I first met you as well. It's just like, you know, his music is, you know, certainly it's how I knew him through lockdown, was like filming his friends who are like, some of them sponsored skaters, you know, they're proper skate crew, filming music to film. And I was like, wow, if we could just press fast forward for this guy, get him out of GCSEs, get him through GCSEs and into that lifestyle, it's so much the better. So yeah, I'm delighted to hear he's doing that. Tell us about Embercombe, because this like is picking up a thread from before about the weed smoking, right?
Yes, the weed smoking was obviously a problem, and then the drinking, and I've since found maybe there were other things going on as well. And you know, it was just you know, it was a worry, but I also knew I had to just, you know, try and let him work through it, and seeing that, okay, that's obviously going on, but he seems okay, you know, having been through awful things with Betsy, realizing he doesn't, I think his mental health is sort of, he feels balanced. But then so when he was expelled, I'd said to him a while back, that was how I found you, through Embercombe, through Journeyman. I think you'd done some the link. And I'd said to him, I'd love to send you to this sort of camp. And he was like, "Mum, you're joking. I'm not going to your hippie camp thing, you know." And so he was just adamant, no. And to be honest, I thought, yeah, I'm going to really struggle to get him to this, because it's just not his thing at all. And then when he got excluded, I kind of saw an opportunity there, I have to be honest. And I just said, okay, so you're not going to get punished. I'm not going to ground you, but this is, you know, a big deal, and we need to do something around this. So I want you to go to Life Beat in August. And he was like, he just sort of said, okay. He was like, okay, Mum. And I think that he could see he didn't really have a way out. I kind of had him a little bit cornered.
Well, but maybe, in all seriousness, maybe he was also like, okay, things are wide open now. What have I got to lose? Like, for himself, maybe he was in a more open place there as well.
I think so. And I think that I think for Lenny, me not punishing him, you know, that trust, there was a lot, but suddenly there was a lot more of a trust bond between us, because he could see that I was on his side. And yeah, we watched the videos about Lifebeat. We scrolled through the website and he went, yeah, okay. And we applied, we got a place, and he went, and it was amazing. He had a week there. I don't know exactly what went on, because a lot of it he said he doesn't want to share with me. There was a lot of sharing. There's a lot of, they call it the heart circle. There were 50 other children. A lot of them were refugees. A lot of them came from inner city London. He heard a lot of stories. Again, he said, Mum, I can't repeat some of the stories because they're so traumatic. But I think, you know, living this quite sort of like rural life, you know, suddenly being taken there and having these experiences, meeting these children from all walks of life, and then being heard and validated and listened to. And he talked about, apparently he talked about me, and he talked about his dad, he talked about everything that's happened. And he said, I said, you know, he came back and he hasn't had a drink or smoked weed since. So that is huge. You know, we went from, like, you know, him partying once or twice a week, coming home, getting into bed, you know, that horrible feeling when you look at, you're like, oh, he's in a bit of a state, he hasn't slept. You know, suddenly he's come back and he's not touching anything, he stayed completely sober. And I said, well, what happened? You know, he said, Mum, I don't know, but they just taught me to love myself. He said, I just feel like I want to look after myself, I feel like I'm worth something.
Wow.
And that has been incredible. And it's been so brave of him as well, because his whole friendship group, his social network was very much around that. And he said that he's still going out, but he wants me to pick him up now. He doesn't want to stay out because he doesn't want to be there when everyone's still, you know, going. And he said sometimes it can feel a bit uncomfortable, and I think, you know, it's brave, because he does spend a lot more time at home now. Luckily he's at college, he's got a job as well now, so he's busy, he's not kind of sitting in his room. But yeah, to go from being that guy within the group and then completely turning it around is incredible. And yeah, I just feel like, so we're nearly 3 months down the line from that now, and yeah, it's like it's another part of this huge success around him. And another, along with Betsy, who's 24 and been sober for 2 years and is doing really well. It's like, if anything, if I wanted to share anything with other parents, it's like, just hang in there, you know, like they can come through it. Take the pressure off, take the control off as much as you can, keep them safe, but trust. And Mimi, my middle one, we haven't had any of these sorts of issues, but she's had a few ups and downs with, you know, going to Oxford, not going to Oxford. What does she want to do? And I from what I've learned from the other two, I just keep saying to her, Mimi, don't worry, you'll make the right decision. I trust you. You know what to do. Trust yourself. And I think that's something, that's the most vital lesson we can give our children, is that we trust them, so that they can learn to trust themselves and to listen to themselves and the path they want to take.
Yeah. Wow, brilliant way to wrap up. You're an expert. I can see you keeping an eye on the time. Yeah, no, that's a perfect summary. And the end point is them trust themselves, much the same as the work I want to do with them. That we're not good at that in this society at this time. We really do not produce children who trust themselves through our education system and our way of parenting, if we're not careful, and just our culture. So yeah, very, very beautiful story, and just a personal share about your experience, Sarah. It's phenomenal.
Lovely to share with you, Henry, and with everyone else who's there. It's, you know,
we've had quite a lot of people watching. There's 8 or so people been watching live. Lots, I think we'll get it on catch up as well. So yeah, and I really want to share the last 5 minutes with Lifebeat. You know, you've really, you know, with your permission, you've really
so much to be grateful for to them. So
huge
much.
result. Like, if I were them, wow, and I just heard what you just shared.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And like I say, I don't know exactly what went on there, but those guys are amazing. And you know, I just wish they could run courses all the time, all year round, because I wish more and more children could get that opportunity, because it feels like such a blessing that Lenny got that opportunity to go.
Oh,
and go back. He just
he wants to go back.
He wants to go right through. He wants to, because when you get to 18 you can be a mentor. He wants to do that. He wants
great. Brilliant. Lenny can be a mentor. I'm loving that. I sometimes suggest that to people that I'm working with. I'm just like, wow, what about, you know, when they're so open and so responsive to mentorship, I always presume that they would make great mentors as well in a way. If they can receive it, they can probably give it. And once they've sensed that value of receiving it, they probably will want to give it and will recognize those opportunities to give it to other people. Like I say, freely in whatever they do in work and in life. You can mentor anyone anytime. It's just a slight degree away from just being with them anyway, to really take them under your wing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, it's been powerful. I think I have a lot of respect for the guys running Life Beat, very much.
Right. Yeah. Wow. All right, Sarah, we're 1 minute over, but that's brilliant. I'm going to end the live stream. Stay with me for a couple of minutes and we'll just have a little chat before we go. Thanks, everybody. All right. Brilliant, Sarah. Thank you so much. So powerful for the parents here. Yeah. Thank you.